Food, it inspires, it entertains, it rewards.
And it fattens.
Yeah, that too. Every person in this room is part of the food process. You make decisions at least 3 times a day about what and where you're going to eat. A lot of times you make those decisions right at the cash register.
So what better way to talk about what Gibbs and RBB has decided is called the conscious consumer than to look inside the grocery bags of 2 of the most important groups driving marketing conversations today, boomers and millennials, and get a sense of how they compare to the average consumer. Before we do that, though, Jeff, why don't you tell everyone how we define a conscious consumer?
Well, a conscious consumer is someone who cares more, shares more, and ultimately spends more. And we're all conscious consumers at different points. There's different things that we're concerned about, be it corporate responsibility, sustainability, recycling, nutrition, many different factors.
Yeah, and you can say, I'm not working for the Golf Channel. I'm sorry to say, I would like to, and if you have a job opening, let me know. No, I'm working with FMCG and food manufacturing for a Danish company, or Danish-based company called Arla Foods. I don't know if you ever heard of that, so I'm just checking my unknown here, how unknown I am, but yeah, I'm pretty unknown. Maybe you heard about Cravendale milk in UK and Castello cheeses and stuff like that. We are behind that. We're actually the 6th biggest dairy producer in the world and the biggest organic producer. But the thing about millennials and baby boomers is extremely important to us as a food company and FMCG. And the reason for that is we can see there's a growing middle class in the world, actually in most countries. And that growing middle class has a strong consciousness about food. And that middle class actually covers both groups, the millennials and the baby boomers. And understanding those 2 groups, the baby boomers and the millennials, are really key to success because, especially when you talk about sustainability and CSR, all the stuff we heard this morning in the discussion we had there, because we are a lot of companies fighting about the same stuff, the same themes, towards the same consumers out there. And the better we understand the 2 groups here, the better we can tap into the hearts and minds as a company. And hopefully also maybe take a little bit of a premium on our products because of that.
Let's talk a little bit about the size of the market. In fact, while I was shopping for these groceries and I started to look through the wrong magazine. I really read this one all the time. In fact, while I was shopping through there, I saw that the grocery market in the United States is $768 billion. And the fastest growing segment of that market is people who make decisions on their purchases based on things like nutrition, food safety, or business practices. And while many people believe that these are niche buyers, our research that we're going to share with you today shows that we believe conscious consumers go in and out of being a conscious consumer based on the product and on the issue. So I'm sure many of you know people who would, never consider buying chicken that had antibiotics in it, but they would go and buy non-organic groceries or produce at their local farmer's market, because the farmer's market, they want to buy local, but they don't care so much that it's organic or not. So what we believe after the research we'll show you today is that the market potential of that $768 billion is about $200 billion. That's more than a quarter of people who make some food purchases based on what we call conscious consumer attributes.
And the Boston Consulting Group says that 2/3 of the market growth in this sector is going to come from what they call responsible consumers, very similar to our definition of conscious consumers.
So what does that mean at the dinner table, and does it matter who's sitting at the table, whether it's a millennial or a boomer? We did a survey with Harris Interactive in the US, and we're going to share the results with you today, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the kinds of marketing techniques that you can use to tackle the conscious consumer.
But in order to do this, we need your help, basically. So we need a baby boomer and a millennial up here. So either I can just pick and choose, or you can raise your hand yourself.
Volunteers?
There will be a millennial. That's good. So we need someone.
Fabulous prizes.
So we need someone with a little bit of gray hair. I will pick and choose if. That's okay. So your name is?
It's Vanessa.
Vanessa. And your name is?
Steve.
Vanessa and Steve. Thank you for joining us. That's good.
Okay. Well, let's get started. Let's see what's in the bag.
Just stand here. That's good.
Uh-oh, looks like this chocolate was made with irresponsible labor practices. So we know, our research says that 72% of consumers would consider switching to another brand. Now, will boomers or millennials be higher or lower than this average? Millennial, what do you think? Higher or lower? Thumbs up, thumbs down? down.
78% of boomers would consider switching.
And 65% of millennials would consider switching.
Okay, so there we go. First answer on the table. Let's see what else we have in our bag here. Let's see. Cereal. With price being equal, what would be most important to you when you make food choices? Nutritional content for the average consumer was number 1 with 85%, and a close number 2 was food safety at 83%. And now don't show your boxes yet.
Did you read it?
So let's ask our guests.
Definitely nutritional.
And audience, who do you think was higher, boomers or millennials? Who says boomers? And who says millennials? Well, the answer is?
All right, well, everyone's a winner since both groups scored higher than the average. Boomers say number 1, 90% nutritional content and 90% food safety.
And millennials says number 1 is also nutritional content at 88%, and then food safety at 87%.
Now let's take a look at our next item. Looks like this burger was made by a company looking to do some tax avoidance. So we know 60% of consumers would switch to another brand if they had the choice. Now, will boomers or millennials be higher or lower than the average? How important to your generation do you think tax avoidance is? Millennial? You think it'll be more or less important? Boomer? More important. Okay, let's see.
66%.
54.
So absolutely, the boomers win another one with 66% compared to the 54. And in fact, boomers felt even stronger when it came to foreign-based corporations, where 51% of boomers would consider switching and only 38% of millennials.
What time is it?
I think it's beer time. Oh,
Yeah.
it's
Beer
party time.
And potato chip time. Looks like there's going to be a party. So what influences boomers and millennials when they make their food choices? First, Kaspar, who influences them? Well, millennials said that mom is the number 1 influencer when it comes to buying groceries. So do you think boomers would agree with that?
No way? Not mom?
No way? Well, the answer is no. Boomers named mom only 21% of the time and said it was a spouse who most impacted their decisions.
And what do you believe that is the number 1 way for both groups to get info about their food choices? It's actually 75% of millennials, they choose word of mouth.
Yeah. Get the pun? Word of
And 67% of boomers say the same thing. After that, the news media came in second, with millennials scoring 10 points higher than boomers about the value of third-party news sources.
Let's see, last question, what this all means on the bottom line. Who is willing to spend more on products that advance the health of the planet, that help with food safety, or just in general have good business practices? The total cost per week for my bag of groceries by the average consumer was $119. Don't let them see yet. So who do you think will pay more? You think millennials will pay more or less? More. And boomers? They'll pay more. Let's see how much they'll pay.
$20.20 more boomers.
And up to $64 for millennials.
$64 for millennials. Well, thank you very much for our guests for agreeing to help with us, and I will give you each. Wait. You can't leave without, everyone has to be a winner. Cash to go out and buy your own groceries, and if anyone from the audience would like any of our products today, we're happy to provide them.
We need to get the beer.
Oh,
The average.
the conscious consumer is willing to spend $31% more per week than the average consumer.
So that 30, and by the way, out in the back on the table, we have a summary of our results, which is being released today, so that you can get a copy of all the different answers. And there's some other issues that we didn't cover today in terms of gender differences, and just give you some overall answers on the general conscious consumer. But let's talk a little bit now about what we can do to actually market to the conscious consumer.
Well, we talked in the beginning about a seed-to-shelf approach, and there are many different places along the value chain in which people might become conscious consumers. It could be how a product is sourced. It could be how it's produced. It could be how it's shipped from one place to another. It could be the nutrition. It could be at the store itself, or it could be even afterward the recycling of the product.
And let's talk about some of the tips, the things that we think are important. The first thing that we think is always remember to put the customer first. As I said earlier, people aren't necessarily on one side or the other. They aren't all organic all the time. We believe conscious consumers are on a spectrum of people who care about certain products and certain issues. So that means if you know your customer, and as we presented last year, our breakout brand philosophy says, know who your customer is and put the customer first. Give them a sense that you're talking to them. At the same time, remembering that while we and many other firms have also noted that people doubt claims, you have to think about talking to them in a way that's genuine so that they can really relate to you on the issues that are important to them.
And remove all the obstacles between you and the ultimate consumer. That means transparency. Break down as many obstacles as possible and speak directly to your end user.
And from my point of view, I think the key message will be local relevant, because we might talk about two big groups here, but they might operate differently in each market you're in. And to give a live example of that, as you probably know, China is a huge market also for food, but they kind of messed up their market themselves. And in dairy, a few years ago, there was a lot of scandals in farmers, milk farmers who actually put poison in the milk. And that ended up at the consumers actually kills a few babies. And that was a huge scandal. So based on that, the consumers, and both the millennials and the baby boomers in China, are extremely concerned about food safety. So if you don't understand that key factor, you will not succeed as a company.
Now, all these results are available in our executive summary, which is available as you leave today. And we'll take some questions if anyone has any. I cannot see if anyone has their hands raised. No plants even? No one?
One other point that I wanted to mention was don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. You know, we want to make it a very keen point that says most conscious consumers, as you heard say, they actually use word of mouth the most, and then very surprisingly to us, they really do believe in the credibility of third-party media above the content that they get from the food companies directly. And that means making sure that you keep talking to them in all the ways that you would talk to any normal marketer, forming the emotional connections. You know, making sure that you're talking to them and doing all of the things that we do every day to build an emotional connection. What we're really talking about here is just making sure that you're talking in your message spectrum, including the messages that are going to be relevant to them with genuine information about the issues that matter most to conscious consumers, and giving them a way to act on that, giving them more information about where products are coming from, how they can use them, and what they're doing in the community to make a difference.
Where do you see the world going in the food tech space?
Well, I mean, we think that there's a lot of interest as consumers have a lot more information available to them, that there's going to be more of an emphasis on looking about how food is produced. But again, I mean, it's important for the companies to be as transparent as possible and speak directly to those consumers.
Go ahead, Leslie, and then we'll wrap up.
We got 8 minutes.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. It's Leslie Gaines-Ross. I wanted to ask you about, did you look at the Gen Xers in the middle? Is there the spectrum going from millennials to Gen Xers to baby boomers? Is there some sort of slide or spectrum?
The survey results were done by all the age groups. We just chose 2 of them to present today. And as I said, we also looked at gender as well as some of the other differences in terms of ethnicity. And what we saw really was, you know, as you even saw the results today, there is not a clear line on the spectrum of being a conscious consumer. It really is jagged because there are certain issues, like you heard the boomers caring more about certain business practices, but millennials being willing to spend more. So while boomers may care more, they're not necessarily willing to put their money where their mouth is, or vice versa, so to speak. So while we didn't really see that there were specific trends by generation, there were hot buttons within each of the demographic groups that were more important to them.
Thanks very much, guys.
Our pleasure.
Thanks.